In this video we're going to go over essentially win conditions. We're going to go over how you can set the win conditions up, what goes into them, what champions fit well into each win condition, and how to essentially play the macro. So let's begin by looking at team fighting. The way that team fighting works is you have champions that have good DPS, usually it's going to be the ADC on both teams. You have a lot of crowd control and AoE, that's usually going to be the mid lane, top lane, and jungle. Also the support sometimes. You will also have peel, which usually is going to be the top, support, and jungle. And you have a front line, and that can be any of these roles, these three right here. So those are the requirements for actually having a team fight, team composition. You have to have DPS. Ideally, you should have AoE, a form of peel, and a strong front line. Now, on the basis of actually executing a team fight, what you are looking to do is you are looking to ideally have a numbers advantage on the enemy, so that they are forced to respond elsewhere on the map, and then you can force a team fight that you always win. The way that you do that is you do that through the 6 decisions, which are GI, VO, FR. If we take mid lane as an example, mid lane is a role that is strong because it has equal distance to both sides of the map, meaning that it can roam in the same amount of time to both sides. When they roam, they have to first shove the wave in, ideally. They have to get the wave under turret so that the mid laner, in this case, is preoccupied with farming the wave. That way, you can then roam and do the 6 different decisions. So, I'll now categorize each one. So, we have ganking, which is the G. We have invading. We have vision. We have setting up an objective, which is just either taking a turret, a herald, baron, or drake. Doesn't matter. These are the objectives that you have. And you can only have a total of 5 objectives available to you at any given moment, because there are 3 lanes and there are 2 epic monsters. We have fighting, which is essentially just anything that's outside of the lane, because this would be classified as a gank. If you go into the enemy jungle, for example, and you maybe invade with your jungler, this would be classified as fighting. And recalling, very simple, you just go back to base. So to go back to what we were talking about earlier, with having 2 teams here, and one of the teams wants to have a numbers advantage over the other team. So what they have to do then is they have to put the enemy into a position where they have to go and rotate to a lane. And while they are in that lane, you do something on the map. You essentially use the priority that you acquire to either take an objective or to force a fight on the remaining members of the enemy team. So before every decision that you go for, you want to shove. That's ideally what you want to do. You want to shove waves before you set up Baron. And even before setting up Baron, you want to actually have vision, because you want to actually see, are they going to contest the Baron, or are they just going to give it up for free? And you can't know that unless you see what's going on the map, so you need vision. And if you look into competitive play, you will usually see the pattern being something like shove, vision, shove, objective. Usually in competitive, this will happen quite a lot on both sides. Both teams will try to get the most vision, and when they do get the most vision, they will then try to force the objective, which then becomes uncontested. Sieging is a bit different from team fighting in the sense that you are not looking to actually go for a direct head-on fight. You're looking to peel and disengage whenever the enemy tries to engage. And the aim of your team comp is to slowly but surely whittle away this turret until it's gone, and you do that for every turret. So for sieging, you need a few things. First of all, you need a good amount of long-range poke. You also need some lingering ground effects, such as Caitlyn traps, Karma, Ult Q, Lots of those things. On top of that, you need a good disengage. Because imagine if the enemy tries to force an engage, they try to pick someone off. You have to have some kind of way to get out of that situation so that you can escape and you can then continue the process of sieging a turret. So champions like Janna, champions that have a good amount of self-peel or some peel for their carries. Those are usually going to be the ones that you see most played during in a siege comp. On top of that, when you are going for a turret on the map, you want to avoid having the flanks open. So you need to place vision around these areas so that in case something happens, you will be able to spot it out so that they can't get a flank on you when you don't expect it. So warding your flanks is very important as a siege comp. In a split push, you are looking at one champion facing another champion of the enemy team, and the one that dies will then lose a turret, which will then apply pressure, and the enemy then has to respond by sending someone to that lane. So the aim of a split push is to draw attention to your lane, and it is to take favorable fights that then result in you being able to expose the turret, which you can then take down. And in a split push, you have 3 primary tactics. You have fight, you have float, you have flank. Fighting is just like it says, it's just fighting your opponent and then getting something out of it. You get a kill, or you force them out of the lane. Floating is when you hang around in the fog of war, you wait around. Probably most likely gonna be because of the fact that maybe the enemy is missing on the map. You don't see them. You don't see anything that goes on in here, and because you don't see anything, you have to then back off and you have to wait. You have to wait and see when they show up on the map, and when they do show up, you can then go look for a fight that is in your favor. With split push, you are looking at numbers advantages. So you have 1v1, you have 1v2, you have 1v3, you have 1v4, which is an extreme case, and 1v5, which is like the absolute worst case, which usually never happens, so we can exclude this. So you have 1v4, you have 1v3, 1v2, and 1v1. Usually what you are looking at on average is going to be a mix of either 1v2 or 1v3. These are the average cases that you are facing. And so the challenge is you are going to have to figure out, can I, with my current items, fight the enemy with their items? If it's possible to go for 1v2, then you don't have to worry about this. Same thing with 1v1. If, however, you cannot 1v3, then you have to resort to floating. You have to go back into the fog of war, wherever it is over here, wherever they don't see you, and you have to wait. You have to wait for them to show up elsewhere so that you can then see, okay, only one person is missing besides the top laner, so I know this is a 1v2, and I beat the 1v2. So then you can show yourself, and then you can actually resume the normal split push. If, however, it happens that you can't kill the top laner, imagine that this is someone like a tank who just stands under the turret and essentially stonewalls any attempt of taking it down. At that point, there's not much you can do as a split pusher. However, you can then look to actually either farm camps or you apply pressure elsewhere on a fight, which would be classified as a flank. You flank the enemy if for some reason you are not able to take this turret, which could be either be because of you can't 1v1 and floating isn't really an option because something else is going on the map. And since you are not applying pressure, if something's going on, let's say that the enemy takes Drake, you are kind of forced to have to rotate, because if you cannot apply pressure by taking down this turret, then you have to apply pressure somewhere else, or you have to go and rotate to the fight, which is what your options are. Or if none of those are available, you have to simply resort to farming camps, maybe taking an objective on the opposite side of the map, the side that you are on, in order to counteract the pressure that the enemy has. So now we move into picking. Picking is going to be somewhat similar to that of split pushing. What you're looking to do is you're looking to shove a side lane in. And whoever comes, this could be anyone. This could be anyone like an ADC, a mid laner, top laner, jungle, doesn't matter. One of the enemy team members, or two, have to respond by rotating. So you are forcing a rotation from the enemy. As you are forcing the rotation, you go into Fog of War and you hide. Because you know that after this person has cleared the wave that is under the turret, after they have killed the wave, they have to come back to their team, usually. So they either have to rotate back the same way they came from, or they have to rotate through the jungle, or they have to recall, then come to whatever is going on elsewhere. And as a pick champion, which usually you're going to be an assassin or a bruiser, you want to hide and you want to have a red trinket, preferably with some control words. You will sit here and you will wait. You will probably most likely place a control word here just to make sure that in case they are pathing this way, you will be able to then respond. And as soon as they come here, you then kill them. And then after killing them, you go back to shoving, and then you resume taking this turret. And you do that for every single turret until you reach the inhib, and at that point you kill the inhib, and then you go to the other side of the map, and then you pressure somewhere else. Pick champions like Zed, Talon, Akali, Katarina, all of those champions, what they are looking to do is they are looking the enemy to rotate one member to a side lane, and then in their rotation back, they catch them off guard in the 1v1, which is almost always going to be in their favor because they are, by design, made to burst a single target down really fast. That's it for all the win conditions. So I hope that you liked the video. If you would like to see more content, you can subscribe. And if you have any new recommendations for new content that you want me to post, you can post it in the comment section down below.